What if I told you that the government could print all the money it needs and never go broke? That deficits don't matter, that debt isn't a real concern, and inflation, it's not caused just by money printing. It may sound crazy, but that's the core of a rising economic theory called modern monetary theory, MMT. And it's not a fringe idea. Some politicians, academics, and influencers believe this is the future of money and how we should run the economy. Also, some people in my comment section say that I don't understand economics, federal debt, and my video on 23 cents of every dollar going to service interest on the US national debt is fear-mongering. Today, I want to break it down, what MMT gets right, where it goes off course, and why I think this kind of thinking could lead us into big trouble. By the way, my name's Noel Lorenzana. I'm not an economist, just a regular guy who spent many years watching how money actually works in the real world and why I believe this matters now more than ever. A common sense look at modern monetary theory. Now, before we go any further, let's be fair. I want to present MMT as accurately and respectfully as possible. MMT isn't some fringe conspiracy theory. It's a real economic framework with serious academic backers. It basically says that a government that issues its own currency, like the United States, can never really run out of money because it can always print more. According to MMT, we should stop thinking of the government like a household. Households have to earn money before they spend it. Governments don't. They can create money, so they spend first and tax later. MMT also separates the concept of affordability from inflation. In their view, the only limit on government spending isn't a budget, it's inflation. As long as inflation is under control, spending can continue. According to MMT, inflation happens when total spending exceeds the economy's ability to produce goods and services. It's not just about the amount of money printed. It's about whether the money supply outpaces the total goods and services the economy can produce. So MMT says the government can print as much money as it needs, as long as inflation is under control. And it can manage inflation by raising taxes and reducing government spending. Now, let me ask you, if that's all true, then why do we worry about deficits at all? Why doesn't the government just fund healthcare, infrastructure, education, and give everyone regular stimulus checks? I want to know what you think. Now, to be fair, there are some parts of this that I think make sense. For example, it's true that the US doesn't need to borrow money the way a household does. And yes, we do have the tools to create money and stimulate the economy when needed. We've seen that with stimulus checks, pandemic aid, quantitative easing. But just because we can print money on demand doesn't mean we should, because there are consequences. And that's where I start to diverge from modern monetary theory. Because in the real world, we've seen what happens when governments go too far. Where MMT falls apart: inflation, reality, and the Fed. Now, this is the part I think some people miss. On the surface, modern monetary theory sounds great, kind of elegant, but in the real world, something breaks. Let's start with the main one: inflation. According to MMT, the government can spend as much as it wants because they print the money. And if inflation shows up, no problem. They say just raise taxes to pull money out of the economy. But let's think about that. When was the last time Congress quickly raised taxes to cool off inflation? Exactly. During the pandemic, the government spent trillions, inflation soared, and instead of raising taxes to fix it, we got a bunch of stimulus checks. Even now, prices are still high: groceries, rent, insurance, everything. That's not a theory, that's the real world. Because once you flood the system with dollars, each dollar becomes worth less. That's basic monetary supply and demand. Now, here's the part that often gets glossed over. The US government can't just print money at will, at least not directly. The power lies with the Federal Reserve, a separate, privately controlled, and conveniently unaccountable institution. And here's the part they never fully explain. The Fed isn't really federal, and it doesn't have any reserves. It was arguably created in secret in 1913 on a private island by a group of bankers and power brokers. Google Jekyll Island if you haven't heard the story, or check out my video up here. Its structure, it's controlled by private member banks, and when the government spends money it doesn't have, it's the Fed that steps in, not by printing money like some old school mint, but by creating money digitally, out of thin air, and then buying government debt through the bond market. So when someone says the government can just print unlimited money, they're missing the full story. There's a firewall, at least on paper, between fiscal policy, Congress, and monetary policy, the Fed. But if those two forces ever aligned, if Congress starts spending and the Fed starts printing on demand, that would eventually lead to hyperinflation, devaluation, and then collapse. Just look at the history. Argentina, Zimbabwe, Weimar Germany. Unlimited money printing, you get worthless money, unlimited pain. What they don't tell you, trust, control, and the real game being played. Here's the part that doesn't show up in textbooks. Modern monetary theory isn't just about economics, it's about control. With MMT, the government can spend whatever it wants until inflation shows up. Then taxes are used to cool it down. Because under MMT, taxes aren't for raising revenue. The government already has the power to create money when it needs to. Instead, taxes are used to pull money out of the system, to manage inflation, and to maintain the value of the dollar. In this framework, taxes are a tool to stabilize the system, not a way to pay the government's bills. Which begs the question, for me at least, so why even bother collecting taxes? All of this then turns the IRS into like an economic thermostat. Too hot, raise taxes. Too cold, the government spends more. All based on a theory. Now if we zoom out, the entire MMT idea depends on trusting the government to manage this perfectly, to raise taxes exactly when needed, to stop spending just at the right time, and to never go too far. But here's the truth. Even if we don't follow MMT officially, we've already been living a soft version of it. The national debt is exploding. Deficits are now permanent. And if you don't think this matters, I don't know what else to tell you. The Federal Reserve is stuck in the middle, fighting inflation with one hand while quietly enabling it with the other. The Federal Reserve was never supposed to be political, but in this environment, it's been forced to pick sides. And when money becomes political, you don't get stability. You get bubbles, bailouts, and breakdowns. So what if they're wrong? What if this whole idea that the government can print and spend without limits turns out to be a giant mistake? What if inflation doesn't stay manageable? What if the trust holding the system together breaks down? You don't need a PhD in economics to understand it. The cost of groceries is persistently high, the price of housing is sky high, and your savings keeps shrinking. This isn't just a theory, it's your life, your money, your future. And while MMT tries to paint a picture of a world without limits, history shows us time and time again that when governments overspend and central banks enable it, it doesn't end with prosperity, it ends with debt, inflation, maybe even hyperinflation, and a quiet erosion of everything people worked so hard to build. That's why I respectfully disagree with modern monetary theory. Not because I have all the answers, I don't, but because I believe in responsibility, in limits, in sound, honest money, and in protecting what matters. So if you felt like the numbers don't add up anymore, if you felt like the money system seems rigged, you're not crazy. And if you want to know more, I explain it all in this video right up here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please consider supporting the channel with a membership. It really helps out. Thank you so much. Until next time, Take care and see you in the next video.